Even among the forbidding 66 domains ruled by the heretic warlords, Ekron stands apart. It is shunned by both the mortal followers of Hell and the servants of the court. No place on earth mirrors the carnage and corruption of Hell so closely as this putrescent city of Beelzebub, the Lord of Flies. The King of Gluttony was one of the first three of the most exalted angelic spirits to fall. Since those ancient days, when he was worshipped as Baal of Flies, a great god of the people known as Philistines, Ekron has been his stronghold, where the power of the Prince of Decay is at its most potent. Today, none are welcome here. Even the heretic legions pledged to the sin of gluttony keep their distance. They know full well that even in their fallen state, Beelzebub sees in them a glimpse of his hated father. Were they not created in his image? Are they not a reminder of his ancient ignominy, where his mortal followers abandoned him? In the ancient past, Beelzebub coveted the Ark of the Covenant, seeking to claim it for himself. His servants captured the holiest of the relics in his great victory over the servants of God at the Battle of Ebenezer. Yet, though his mortal servants seized the Ark from the Hebrews, they dared not bring it to his city, for Yahweh punished those who stole the symbol of his covenant. Plague afflicted the people of each town to which it was taken, and the Lord's hand was heavy. He brought devastation upon them, and afflicted them with tumors. So terrifying was the Creator's affliction that the people of Ekron abandoned the orders of Beelzebub and voluntarily sent the Ark back to the chosen people. Humiliated and enraged beyond mortal measure, Beelzebub swore never to forget this disgrace. From that day on, he devoted himself to the corruption of all creation, vowing to despoil the world until all that lived would be subject to his will and absolute rule. Beelzebub stalked into his great citadel in the seventh circle of hell. Here he labored for the next 2,000 years to forge the crowning achievement of his dark genius, a plague of his own design. It would not only eclipse those his father sent to punish the Pharaoh, but mar and corrupt all of creation. Never again would he trust mankind, so weak and easily bent to the will of the tyrant god. Long he labored, pouring much of his divine essence into his work. When the Black Grail was unleashed upon the world in the Black Year of 1436, it brought the world to the brink of utter ruin. The newly established Order of the Fly raised the city of Ekron from the rubble, and the power of Beelzebub seeped through from the hellgate of Jerusalem that was. It slithered for many miles, settling upon towers and walls, and streamed through the streets in a torrent of demonic hellflies, scorpions, locusts, and other infernal insects infested with the Black Grail. Ekron stands as the seat of Beelzebub's earthly power, where his worshippers assemble from across the world to offer tribute to the King of Gluttony. Where the Black Grail spreads and the Order of the Fly raises its Lord's standards, they seek offerings to bring back to the city. To the missionaries of the Black Grail, it is a realm of beauty and divine vision, a whispered promise of the world to come, and a place their hearts yearn to behold. To everyone else, it is a domain of abject horror, where a fate worse than hellfire awaits. After nearly 600 years under the ravages of the Black Grail, Ekron is a city of overflowing splendor and revolting decay. Entire temples, churches, mosques, pagodas, shrines, and altars from every corner of the world are scattered throughout the city, born there by the hands of untold millions of Grail thralls. Amidst streets seething with undead corruption stand wonders of art, marble statues, elegant porphyry pillars, frescoes and icons of gold studded with precious stones. Yet though they are worth the ransom of 1,000 kings, it is not their monetary value that interests Beelzebub. It is thought that the Lord of Flies can tap into these objects of devotion, feeding on the power of adoration that still lingers in these monuments of faith. like a parasite swelling upon its host until it is swollen to the point of bursting. He leeches the power of faith until he is so engorged with it that his great wings might once more carry him skyward to storm the gates of heaven. To make the religious objects more palatable and pleasing to their lord and master, the clergy of the fly conducts elaborate rites of desecration. Through complex rituals, they corrupt icons and holy places, transforming them into morsels, offerings to be devoured by his ravenous gluttony for worship and adulation. Yet he will never be sated. Though he seeks to fill the terrible emptiness festering within him, his hunger can never truly be assuaged, no matter how much of creation he consumes. For what the Lord of Flies hungers for above all, his other unnatural appetites, is the sole right to divine worship, a birthright he feels his father has usurped. In his mind, the natural order is for the parent to die so that their offspring may rise in their place. And who more suited to take the throne of God than Beelzebub, the most gifted of his children? Thus it is written in the tablets of Ekron, "Be not afraid, for behold, I bring you tidings of great joy, which shall be for all the people, for the Black Grail has come." Alrighty, so official lore around Ekron and some explaining as to who exactly Beelzebub is, why he's the Lord of Gluttony, what that actually entails specifically for him at this point in his existence, and a whole lot more. So let us talk about one of the things, well, many of the things I guess mentioned in the video, but one of the things I want to focus on at the start is at the very start of the file that we got from Tuomas, it describes the language of Ekron as being corrupt Enochian. And this is actually really quite interesting. So Enochian is an occult constructed language. A constructed language is one that is made for a purpose rather than arises from natural development. Think about the languages that Tolkien would have developed for his stories rather than something like English or Greek or French or any language that has basically occurred out of the evolution of a need to communicate. So it was something essentially that people just kind of made up very quickly and for a specific purpose. So in the real world, Enochian was recorded in private journals by two gentlemen called John Dee and his colleague Edward Kelly in the late 16th century in England. John Dee was a mathematician, astronomer, teacher, astrologer, occultist, and alchemist, from back in the day where people didn't specialize. They were Swiss Army brains because they were so curious, I guess, and they wanted to answer so many questions about the world. He was an advisor to Elizabeth I, and he would eventually leave that to truly chase his interest in the occult. Edward Kelly was, to all intents and purposes, something of a charlatan, it seems. He impressed Dee with his abilities as a scryer. And for those who don't know, a scryer would have been somebody who could perceive the future or perceive knowledge outside of what was explainable by their senses. They developed a heavily Christian ritual that involves purification and prayer and fasting to ensure that the occult stuff they were doing could not stain their souls. And it was these sessions that led to the development of the Enochian language, where reputedly angels visited them and wanted to communicate and had to teach them how to communicate. So, interesting side note that has nothing to do with anything, but it's just something that I came across in my research. Kelly eventually convinced Dee that they should share all their worldly belongings because Dee was basically richer than he was, and that included their wives. So there you go. A little hint, a little life tip. If you look at any cult or any charlatan or any dodgy guy, there always comes a day where somehow it is God's will that they bang your wife. That's when you leave. So at the time of its development, they referred to the language as angelical, but that was later changed to Enochian by other people, hinting at the story of Enoch who was made no more by God, if you go back and look at the previous video about Argos. D claimed it was the language spoken by Adam, name all the things in the Garden of Eden, so technically the first ever mortal language. Interestingly, Enochian literature, which is essentially the 3 books of Enoch, explores a lot of things like angels and demons and prophecy, and it speaks to corruption as the influence of fallen angels. So this is corrupt Enochian. So if the devs are rolling with Enochian as being a legitimate, genuine thing, then corrupt Enochian would appear to be an offshoot of the language that most likely developed in hell after the fall. So there you go, corrupt Enochian. Let's talk a little bit about Baal. Baal of Flies is mentioned. Baal was a prominent deity in ancient Canaanite Phoenician mythology, primarily worshipped as the god of fertility, rain, and storms. He was also associated with the concept of owner or lord in Semitic languages, and his name was later used for other gods and even demons in different pantheons and in different contexts. This would seem to be a case of Baal being drawn in to the Christian way, I guess. You know, we've discussed it on the channel before that Christians would show up, they would adapt little parts of local religions, local belief systems, and use them in a way. So obviously, god of fertility, rain, and storms, it's likely Baal was a pretty popular person in Canaanite Phoenician culture, and this was a way to like make him look like a bad guy, essentially in real world history. So, the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant is a wooden chest that's lined with gold, and it is said to contain the 10 Commandments among other things. So it's likely that Beelzebub covets it because it's representative of God's love and his attempt to guide men, right? Essentially what the 10 Commandments are is a cheat sheet to get into heaven. So why would he give that to them? You know, why not help the fallen get back to heaven? Oh yeah, it's because he doesn't care about them, at least as far as Beelzebub is concerned. The Ark also has a strong connection to the Israelites' religious life, and they are said to have carried it with them in the wilderness, and it's thought to possess the power to destroy their enemies. It is possible that in Trench Crusade, Beelzebub has a particular hatred for the Israelites and the Jewish people, as in real life, his name was often used as a grave insult and a curse by the Israelites. So it's just something interesting the devs might play with and lean into as they develop the Hebrew Knights. I don't know. Now, there was a reference to the chosen people. The chosen people refers to an apparent special relationship between God and the Jewish people. The idea of the chosen people is found in several passages of the Hebrew Bible, such as Exodus 19:6, which states, "You will be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation," and Deuteronomy 7:6 also says, "For you are a holy people to the Lord your God, and Lord your God had chosen you out of all the peoples on earth to be his treasured possession." So once again, this might be further reason for Beelzebub to just really fucking hate the Israelites and just kind of let that enmity grow. And we know he's a really kind of a hateful dude. That's one of the most interesting things about Beelzebub is how this is played out. So Beelzebub truly hates absolutely everyone and everything, even his own followers, because his own followers remind him of the failure of his followers thousands of years ago. We learn from this lore that rather than wanting to destroy all life, he actually wants to kill God and take his place and be worshipped as the only true God. He wants to be the true divine, and likely by means of the Black Grail, because the Black Grail is something of an insurance policy. If you're infected with the Black Grail, you can never turn on Beelzebub. He's been hurt before. He's not sure if he can risk being hurt again. So it was a plague from God that prompted Beelzebub to produce the Black Grail, and he did it to ensure absolute dominion over life, not just to destroy it. And he also did it because that was the means of insult to him, right? God used a plague to stop his followers from doing what he told them to do. They feared God's plague more than they feared Beelzebub. So it appears like an emo kid, he went off to live his life in such a way that would be the perfect poetic win against his dad. You made a plague, I'm going to make a goddamn fucking plague. He was greatly insulted by his followers' fear of the tyrant god Yahweh, and he seems to be eternally driven now to usurp him, seeing that as being a natural order that the child takes the place of the parent. I really love this explanation of Beelzebub, and I also love the fact that his gluttony is less about kind of eating the meat of people, infecting people with stuff. He wants the adoration. He wants the adulation. He has his followers bringing all kinds of entire holy buildings to Ekron so he can steal that essence of the faith within them. That's really interesting to me. I really like that quite a lot. So yeah, that's it for this video. That's as much as I want to break down, I guess. I will likely do a longer, more detailed video specifically about Beelzebub in the future, and we'll go from there. But as always, folks, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you're having a really lovely day, and all the best.